see my other two Mayor's Award recipients. They must be running late, but I'm going to read them anyways because I definitely want to, I'm just grateful for the both of them. They had a very big hand. Actually, they did all the legwork in getting everybody in Des Moines County that went to the emergency management training. They put all of that together, and it was a lot of hard work, and they do so much more that just we don't get to recognize them. So I want to recognize them tonight, and hopefully they can show their faces. I'm sure some of you know these people, or some of you know who these people are. On behalf of the City of Burlington, Iowa, I would like to thank you for being a model Burlingtonian. Your commitment to your job, the safety of your community, and the fact that you got 80 people to FEMA training in Maryland without incident is a miracle. You make Burlington a great place to live, work, and play. And one of the recipients is Gina Harden, who does a lot of work for us in emergency management locally, and her cohort, Tom Colthurst. So we will recognize them. I'll make sure that they receive these. And if you happen to know them and you run into them, pat them on the back and tell them you certainly appreciate them, because we really do. Sometimes you don't recognize how much you appreciate people because you only get to see them in action really when we have an emergency. And praise the Lord, we haven't had any emergencies where we've had to put them into action too tough. But anyways, thank you both for that. Okay. Next on the agenda tonight is the consent agenda. All matters listed under item 1, consent agenda, having been discussed, are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items, and if a discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. On the consent tonight, we have finances and miscellaneous, minutes of previous meetings, payroll and city claims, beer, liquor, wine, and cigarettes, reports and bonds. We have 8 resolutions. The first is a resolution approving nuisance abatements for various properties. The second is a resolution authorizing internal loan from general fund to tax increment revenue fund. The third is a resolution approving agreement between City of Burlington, Iowa, Klingner Associates, PC, Mike Nelson Concrete Paving Company, and Four Seasons Excavation and Landscaping, Inc. for construction and extension of that portion of Monticello Drive situated within the 7th addition to the Westbrook Estates subdivision. The fourth is a resolution approving maintenance and operation of public infrastructure in the 7th addition to Westbrook Estates subdivision. The fifth is a resolution approving energy efficiency plan agreement between the City of Burlington, Iowa and Interstate Power and Light Company to provide grant funding for the design and implementation of programs that improve market awareness and adoption of new technologies through the Bright Ideas Grant Program. The sixth is a resolution approving energy efficiency plan agreement addendum between the City of Burlington, Iowa and Southeastern Iowa Community College for the purchase of up to 2 charging systems. The seventh is a resolution approving energy efficiency plan agreement addendum between the City of Burlington, Iowa and Hy-Vee Supermarket at 3140 East Agency Street, Burlington, Iowa for purchase up to 2 charging systems. And the eighth is a resolution approving lease of 2 Toro Greenmaster 3150 Greens mowers by Flint Hills Golf Course for 4 years. We also have 3 appointments, Mayor Pro Tem.
Animal Hearing Board has a vacancy, and Tim Goodwin has asked to be appointed to that committee. Owen Sloan and Elizabeth Van Fleck have asked to be reappointed to Economic Development, and Joanne Bauer reappointed to the Riverfront Advisory Committee.
Awesome. Is there anybody from the audience that would like to have any of these items removed from the consent? Anyone but Leon Shahan.
Too late. Leon Shahan, 1821 Mount Pleasant Street, item number 2 under resolutions.
Anybody else that would like to have any items removed from the consent? See none? Can I get a motion now?
Your Honor, a motion to approve all listed under item 1 consent agenda.
Second.
Kathleen?
Wilson? Aye. Davidson?
Aye.
Fleming?
Aye.
McCampbell?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Okay. This is time set for hearing for consideration of a sale of property locally known as 925 Wells Court, City of Burlington, Iowa. Publication's been made in the Hawkeye. It's auction time tonight. The City of Burlington has currently received bids for the purchase of a property located at 925 Wells Court. The current high bid is in the amount of $500. All permits shall be received and all codes shall be met as applicable for any construction on this lot. Mr. Tislin, do you have anything that,
This is a property we acquired through the abandoned building program. The city demolished the home at this site that was in a derelict condition, and the current offer is from the property owner directly to the west, who owns 2 properties there, has a desire to expand the lot size of those properties.
okay. Let's start the bidding. We have a bid from Tina Tager. Is Tina here tonight? Oh, how you doing? Hi. All right. We have a $500 bid from Tina Tager. Do I have a $600 bid? 550? 550, 600, 600, 550. See, if I talk faster, sometimes people will do that. No? No other bids tonight? Going once, going twice. All right. Sold to Tina Tager.
She has a question.
We're giving you the property? No, I'm just playing. Can I get you to come to the microphone, please? State your name and address.
Tina Tager, 18299 Danville. I just found out today from Eric and Larry that the alley access hasn't been able to be used for about 11 years because of a retaining wall that is coming down. And he said today that the landowner was responsible for that, which I did not know.
So.
And he's still interested in it, but I wanted to get a bid from somebody to see what it would cost, because they're saying it's pretty expensive because there's already a cement wall there that's coming down. And it's been like that for like over 11 years. So we, always thought it was the city
Sure.
to take care of it.
Mr. Tislin?
If it's something we want to delay, we'd have to postpone the hearing on this.
Or if I was responsible for it, how long of a time do I have to meet the standards of the city?
Mr. Tislin?
There's no requirement, we didn't have any requirement that you had to go in and replace it. It's essentially pretty much an untraveled alleyway. We haven't received any complaints on it. So I guess it'd be something we'd have to talk to Chris Clements on in Public Works, but I guess we've never received any complaints until you asked us on that, or what the time frame was, so I don't know if you have any input on that, Jim, but it'd be something we could certainly work with you on.
Yeah, beyond that, it is a liability that goes with the property.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's been something that's been sitting there for 11 years, and we're not pushing on it because it isn't a used alleyway. But it is a liability that sits with the property. That's about all I can really say on that.
So, Ms. Tager, do you want to move forward on this, or would you want us
Yes,
to?
I'll go ahead and move forward. Yeah, I'll go ahead and accept them.
Okay. Any other questions?
No.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we accept the bid at $500 from Tina Tager.
All right.
We need to close the
I'll do
hearing
the
first.
amendment first.
No, we need to close the hearing first.
Okay. A motion to close.
Second.
Moved in second, Kathleen?
Wilson?
Aye.
Davidson?
Aye.
Fleming?
Aye.
McCampbell?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Then we need to introduce the resolution.
Okay. Your Honor, I have a resolution approving the sale of property locally known as 925 Wells Court, City of Burlington, Iowa.
Second.
Your Honor, I have a motion to amend Exhibit C of the resolution approving the sale of property locally known as 925 Wells Court, City of Burlington, Iowa, Des Moines County. That the property be sold to Tina Tager, the amount of $500.
Second?
Second.
Okay, can we vote on the amendment?
Wilson?
Aye.
Davidson?
Aye.
Fleming.
Aye.
McCampbell.
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
And now, well, let's vote on it as amended.
Wilson.
Aye.
Davidson.
Aye.
Fleming.
Aye.
McCampbell.
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
All right. Tina Tager, property's yours. Thank you for coming down. Okay, this is a time for consideration of a sale of property locally known as 1014 Court Street, City of Burlington, Iowa. City of Burlington has currently received bids for the purchase of property located at 1014 Court Street, a vacant lot. The current high bid is in the amount of $200. All permits shall be received and all codes shall be met as applicable for any construction on this lot. Quitclaim deed shall be transferred to purchaser upon payment of purchase price. The $200 bid is from Travis Boner, 612 North Central Street. Travis here tonight? Okay. Mr. Tisland?
Again, property owner directly to the west has inquired about purchasing this property and submitted the current bid on it. This is, I guess, very challenged property based on the terrain for it. It is a steep hillside that would have very little use or ability to build upon other than potentially for a neighbor to the east or west. He does currently have a auto repair business at that location on Central Avenue. Any construction or storage on the site would have to meet all our codes, including paving and receiving building permits and meeting all codes and setbacks if you were to construct on the site. Partially just wants to, I guess, expressed interest in expanding the lot size in case there ever is a need for an addition to the existing building to be able to meet setbacks. Or if there's a need down the road with his business, so.
Okay, we're going to get this auction started. If there are any persons that are interested that their names aren't on here, we'll have to get your information. We'll have you come to the front and give us your name and address. We have a $200 bid. Do I have a $250 bid? I see $250. And this is a beautiful, beautiful property. You don't see the blades of grass on this place. They're green. I mean, they're a hue of green. No? We got 200, no other bids? Going once, going twice. Okay.
Your Honor, I have a motion to close.
Second.
Kathleen.
Our city property isn't worth very much.
Maybe it's the auctioneer.
What do you think?
Wilson.
Pray for the auctioneer.
Davidson.
Aye.
Fleming.
Aye.
McCampbell.
Aye.
Scott.
Aye. Your Honor, a resolution approving the sale of property locally known as 1014 Court Street, City of Burlington, Iowa.
Second.
Your Honor, I have a motion to amend Exhibit C of resolution approving the sale of property locally known as 1014 Court Street, Burlington, Iowa, Des Moines County. The property be sold to Travis Boner in the amount of $200.
Second.
Second.
Kathleen.
Wilson.
Aye.
Davidson.
Aye.
Fleming.
Aye.
McCampbell.
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
Okay, that was on the amendment and as amended.
Wilson.
Aye.
Davidson.
Aye.
Fleming.
Aye.
McCampbell.
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
Sold. I'll tell you what, that was a fantastic property. Maybe next time. Okay, this is this is consideration of an ordinance vacating and selling a portion of Gordon Street right-of-way located west of Baumberger Street and a portion of Baumberger Street right-of-way located south of Monroe Street. Can I get a second? No, I don't need a second there. Mr. Tisland.
This was a request from Jerry and Rebecca Sherwood. We live at the west end of Gordon Street, right away that's been requested to be vacated. They own the properties to the west of the vacated right-of-ways. They own lots along the railroad tracks and then on their homes and some vacated right-of-ways in this area. These are unused and unmaintained right-of-ways, primarily overgrowth of trees and native vegetation. They are the only individuals serviced by the driveway off of the end of Gordon Street, just to the west of Baumberger. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on June 21st and voted 4-0 to recommend approval of the vacating of the described right-of-ways. Again, based on the Gordon Street right-of-way being a dead end that only serves the applicant's property at 2005 Cliff Road, and then Bob Burger Street right-of-way is an unused and unmaintained right-of-way with lack of ability for future travelway access through the right-of-way. The applicant has expressed a desire for ownership and maintenance of the right-of-way, and these are of no use to the city of Burlington. So these are recommended to be vacated and sold to the property owners at 2005 Cliff Road, Jerry and Rebecca Sherwood.
Is there anyone from the audience that has any questions or concerns? I see none. Lovely crowd tonight. Council?
None for me.
We're good.
All right, let's get her done.
All right,
Kathleen?
motion to close?
Second.
Excellent. Kathleen?
Wilson,
Aye.
Davidson,
Aye.
Fleming,
Aye.
McCampbell,
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
Your Honor, motion for preliminary adoption of the first reading of an ordinance vacating and selling a portion of Gordon Street right-of-way located west of Baumberger Street and a portion of Baumberger Street right-of-way located south of Monroe Street.
Second.
Kathleen, let's take the vote.
Wilson,
Aye.
Davidson,
Aye.
Fleming,
Aye.
McCampbell,
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
All right, it's a done deal. Next, we have consideration of an ordinance rezoning the property located at 2635 Mount Pleasant Street from C2 General Commercial to R4 Multifamily Residential Zoning District. Mr. Tislin.
This is a request to rezone the property. It was, currently has two existing threeplex units, residential units on the property. The current developer of the property, based on the use of the property, felt, or I guess understood it to be zoned residential, and we came in and took a look at the zoning map, found that it was a commercial property. Directly to the east is Orchard Meadows development that is zoned R4, multifamily residential, and to the south is the low-rent housing agency that's zoned R4 as well. It is currently zoned C2, which is also the property to the west and further down to the east as well. This went to the Planning Commission on June 21st and regarding the rezoning of the property, and they voted 4-0 to recommend approval of the rezoning based on the existing use of the property as residential. In 2001, it went through a process through the City Council to construct 15 condo units on the property under a general commercial expanded zoning classification that is no longer a zoning district within our city zoning code. So it did go through a process previously, but it currently is a non-conforming use based on the current zoning of the property. Also based on the request of the applicant and following the future land use map designation of as residential. The attached map is somewhat deceiving a little bit. It does show where it was 3 additional structure units. These went through the process. They filed a condominium association or horizontal property regime with the county, and that was approved, but those don't exactly show the location of the planned buildings. So in 2001, this is the actual site plan that was followed or filed with the county that shows the 2 buildings on the north side, the other building, and then the 2 existing buildings. So there was some discussion about maintaining open space or not rezoning the north portion of it. It is in the in the ordinance to maintain the north 50 feet as an open space, non-buildable, but based on the design and layout of the buildings as they were to be constructed, it would be difficult to do much more than that and not affect the construction of that last unit. The applicant is here as well if you have additional questions.
Are you the applicant?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Yes, my name is Mike Hoffman at 5512 Flint Crest Drive, Burlington, Iowa, and I'm in the process of purchasing this property. There's obviously 2 triplexes already up, as mentioned, and my plans are to build 3 more triplexes. have an agreement at this time to purchase it, and part of the building permit process was to get this correctly done through the planning office. And I understand that at a recent council session, there was some questions about that footage, and I think Eric pretty well answered that question, that I have no desire to do anything with that remaining 60 feet. There's just not enough room with 25-foot front and 25-foot back. So what I am wanting to do with the property is build a triplex for the aging in place, which is something not really anybody's really done in this community. And aging in place, there was a Harvard study done in September 2014, I have a copy of here. And what that focused on was that we have the next 2 decades, it indicated that there's going to be a great rapidly growing population of over 50, and also the folks that are impaired and have a disability, et cetera. And so in order to meet the Harvard study, they brought up five different things that people need to have in an aging in place environment. And to do that in your existing home might be quite expensive. For example, widening doorways. Wheelchair access is typically 32 or 36 inches. A simple thing like a handle on a door, a doorknob is usually round, so you put levers units in. And other features that would come about that I would like to put into this would be roll-in showers, so that a person doesn't have a barrier to get into the shower. And another thing would be extra wide hallways, so that it can accommodate a wheelchair. A typical hallway is just not very wide. And another very important thing is single floor living. These units will look like the other buildings at Orchard Meadows and Orchard Gardens, I should say, because those are the triplexes. They'll look very similar. At Orchard Gardens, the center unit, I believe, has a second floor. I'm not going to have a second floor, but again, the buildings will look basically the same. And a really important thing, of course, is no steps. So these will be zero entry, so there won't be any elevation things. And they will be the first ones built not only in Burlington, not only in the state of Iowa, but in the United States that will have the Warren lifts in them, which is an adjustable height toilet that goes up and down 12 inches that can greatly aid somebody in their home, so that they don't have to go to a nursing home where the cost, of course, is thousands upon thousands of dollars. So, and in addition to that, there's going to be many other things like lighting, and I could go on, but I think you get the idea. And so my plan is to move forward once I can get the building permit and to put up the first triplex. And if there's any questions anybody might have, I'd be happy to answer. I do indeed have Warren lift brochures. If anybody doesn't know what the power adjusted toilet is, I've got brochures here for them.
I'd love to get a copy of that brochure.
Well, I just happen to have a bunch here for the council and anybody else that would like some.
You said that was for 50 and over. See, I'll be there in a couple of years. You know what I'm saying, my friend?
Sir, I'm already well past you. And thank you for your time, unless there's any other questions.
Thank you for coming down and clarifying.
They need
How many-
that in more than we do.
How many triplexes are we talking?
There's room to build 3 triplexes. I'd like to build the first one, get that occupied, and then move on to the next 2.
All right.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike. Anyone from the audience, questions or concerns? I see none. All right, council?
He addressed my concerns. I appreciate that.
Okay.
A
You
motion-
good? Yeah, that's fine. You're not close to 50 yet, but someday you will be.
One day.
All right, let's take.
Motion to close.
Second.
Kathleen?
Wilson,
Aye.
Davidson,
Aye.
Fleming,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
Here I have a motion for preliminary adoption of the first reading of an ordinance rezoning the property located at 2635 Mount Pleasant Street from C2 General Commercial to R4 Multifamily Residential Zoning District.
Second.
Thank you. Moved to second. Kathleen, let's take it to vote.
Wilson,
Aye.
Davidson,
Aye.
Fleming,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
All right, well done. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Next is consideration of plans and specifications for the 2016 former Dresser Rand site cleanup project.
We have Mike Golan with Impact 7G here, who's worked with us on the project and developing the plans and specs for it. Let him kind of take over on it.
Yes. Hi, I'm Mike Golan with Impact 7G. I've been working on this project for about 3 years now, almost 3 years now. This project includes the demolition of the existing foundations on both sides of the railroad tracks, working within the railroad right-of-way, the removal of some transformers that are still there, some excavation of contaminated soil, and basically cleaning up the site, grading it, seeding it, and getting it prepared for redevelopment. The engineer's estimate of probable cost on this project is $623,700. There's approximately 194,000 square feet of concrete foundations out there.
How many?
194,000 square feet. Some of those are fairly sizable. About 1,200 yards estimated of contaminated soil that has to be removed and hauled to the landfill, and just some general improvements.
We're looking for bids to be accepted through, I'm sorry, when?
Through, let's see here, I have that right here. Bids will be accepted through August 4th, 2 p.m. on August 4th.
And we're looking to take action, the council meeting then on August 15?
Yes.
Do you have that set in there? In your schedule?
Yeah, August 5:30 p.m. on August 15th. Yep.
And our goal is, once we get into contract, to provide 90 days
90
for
days to get it complete.
working days.
Correct.
This is the same project that we had looked at when we submitted for, well, actually, we had submitted to EPA for cleanup funding, $200,000 grant application, and that was for a portion of this work.
That
to
was
be
for the
done.
one portion, yes, on the basically the east side of the tracks, the smaller of the two pieces of the property.
But this will wrap it up. I mean, what'll be left to do after this?
This will put that whole area will be to green space. You included within this the removal, like there's some bricks along the retaining wall.
Yep.
I think you included.
That'll be included in the project. So basically, the site will be graded, seeded, and ready for a developer to come in, or if you can find somebody and redevelop the site. So.
I mean, for the interim, our plans are to have it as green space and have it look fairly attractive. If there is the potential long-term to have someone come in and put a commercial property back up, it wouldn't be suitable for housing.
No, it's not going to be suitable for residential. It'll be suitable for commercial use. This property is enrolled with the state voluntary cleanup program, so everything is going through them so far. So now we're to the point where they've approved this plan, so it's just ready to move forward and get it done.
It'd be nice to see that seeded and just all that junk cleared up. It's been a process. It's not cheap to do that, to get that.
As a reminder, this is a gift one of those gifts that keeps on giving. This is
amazing. That's exactly what I was going to say. What is the deal here?
This goes back to, I mean, I think I was looking through the file on Dresser Rand earlier today. I think the original notes I have on that are from 2006, with the process of trying to maintain them in the community. We ultimately purchased that property, I think, late 2008. Had removed those buildings in 2012, and this will be hopefully the final step to having a cleaned up property. It will still have contaminants within the soil, but you'll have a certification from DNR.
There may be a few, but it will be below a certain level, and there'll be some covenants that go along with the property, which basically will be restricting any groundwater use for drinking water, which I think the city already has an ordinance, or we're just restricting to commercial use. That'll be the only restrictions on the property.
How many years was that building there? Do you remember?
I think it was the early 1900s or something. It's been in industrial use for a long time, for different industrial uses.
Yeah, just the fact that we can plant grass on there when you get done, that's a pretty good deal. So.
This is a fairly expensive project. We did certify this as a TIF eligible project last year. We had been involved, as I mentioned, this is a long-standing project. We had a $1 million loan from the state that was done with the process of getting Dresser Ran to a new location. The goal, I think, at the time when the council did that back in 2008, 2009, was to try to get that building resold after a flood and various other things. That was not something that was a viable thing to see happen. I think we're able to cut $150,000 or $200,000 off of that note. I don't know if you remember, it's in that ballpark. But we did pay the remainder of that, $850,000 range, out of local option sales tax to satisfy that note. It's been a very costly project, but it also, you have to look at where it came within the scope of what was going on in the city, and the town had lost a lot of jobs at the time where this happened. And this was something that was pretty important to try to maintain some stability in a very fractured job market. Paying for this piece with TIF funds is what was identified last year. We had an estimate for, I think, $400,000 we'd put on then prior to
That was
going
for
through.
I think that was for the one side, yeah.
Really for the one side. We'll look to, as this project goes forward, we'll see where the actual costs come in for construction. But we would certify the debt on the back side and pay for it with TIF revenues. And we have flexibility to make it happen.
Awesome. Awesome. Anybody from the audience have any questions? Anybody except for Leon Shahan? Come on down.
Just a question on this final phase. Is there any brownfield, grayfield money that's gonna help out on this final cost, or are we on the hook for the whole cost of the final cleanup?
We had applied for, again, when we applied for EPA funds, that is kind of that brownfields type funding. We applied 2 years in a row and were rejected on that funding application both times.
So we're out of luck.
Yes, we're out of luck. We
You
did,
can't blame us for trying, though.
along the way, we did receive some funds, not a major amount, but the state did provide some cleanup funds or for the assessment, and I can't remember if they did any beyond that, Eric.
Through the land recycling program, through
I think that
Melpins.
actually Southeast Regional Planning Commission paid for the initial assessments with some Brownsfield money
Yeah.
that they had from the EPA for grants. Initially, those 2 assessments, as the city was
Were paid
purchasing the
that way.
property. So.
Glad you can remember.
Thank you, by the way.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the audience? Thank you, Leon.
I have a motion to close.
Second.
Kathleen?
Wilson,
Aye.
Davidson,
Aye.
Fleming,
Aye.
McCampbell,
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
Your Honor, I have a resolution approving plans and specifications for the 2016 former Dresser Rand site cleanup project.
Second.
Moved and second. Let's take it to vote.
Wilson,
Aye.
Davidson,
Aye.
Fleming,
Aye.
McCampbell,
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
Good deal. Moving forward on that. Excellent.
Your Honor, I move to approve the 28E amended agreement between the City of Burlington, Iowa and the Southeast Iowa Regional Airport Authority for shared services and for continued operation and maintenance of an airport facility.
Second.
This is a renewal of our 2080 agreement that we have with the Airport Authority. The majority of the terms stay the same from what had previously been in place. A couple of things that had changed within the Airport Authority's agreements under Article 4. That's page, I think, 44 of the packet. Great, that's a long ways in. The first item, as an example, the reimbursing the city the $9,600 for providing fire protection services. That same term has been in there throughout, but the $9,600 is an escalated number from what, as an example of a change to this contract. We increase that $100 each year, so that from 5 years ago, I think would have been 9,100, I guess, 5 years earlier. The big change that's in here would be the transfer of the Armory property over to the ownership of the Airport Authority, transfer from the city over to the Airport Authority, and then us leasing from them a no-dollar lease, but we have the responsibility for maintenance. Long-term, this arrangement envisions that any eventual tear down of that, the main Armory building would be on a split basis between the city and the Airport Authority, 50% city, 50% Airport Authority. Sir, Eric, can you think of anything else I'm missing on?
No, I think that's primarily it, is the use of the buildings as storage and continued use by the city for those buildings.
We primarily use that. The police uses it for some storage. The forestry department uses it for equipment, and then our public works department uses it for storage as well. The HESCO barriers are there, some sewer pipe. The language allows us to modify the current usage over time, but with the permission of the Airport Authority as the owner of the property.
Any questions or concerns from the audience? Leon Shahan. Please state your name and your address, please, sir.
Again, Leon Shahan, 1821 Mount Pleasant Street. The only thing I wondered in that, there was some issue on the Armory as far as that being occupied under FAA rules. Does this resolve those problems?
Actually, it allows them to have some control over how that is occupied, and that was one of the concerns, is that they wanted to ensure that if the FAA had some restrictions in terms of runway protection zone, et cetera, for what could or couldn't be there, that they had the flexibility to adjust how that was occupied, and this gives them that level of control.
Okay. Any other questions by anybody that is not Leon Shahan? Council? No. All right, let's take the vote.
Wilson,
Aye.
Davidson,
Aye.
Lemming,
Aye.
McCampbell,
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
Okay, Your Honor, I move that we accept the design for Phase 5 of the Riverfront Flood Mitigation Project.
Second.
And I can't remember how this was set up, but Leo, you were gonna
I think I was gonna go first and then others can.
sort of do a review of the presentation from
Yes.
last time.
My name's Leo Foley. I'm with Beanstra and Kim, and I'm the project manager for the flood mitigation in the downtown and the riverfront improvements. This is Jason McKenzie. He's also from B&K. He's one of our design engineers. And I think everybody remembers, but we also have a planning group called Smith Group JJR that does quite a bit of the planning for us. So what we wanted to do is we came to a work session about a month ago, and we kind of laid out what we called the master plan, and also how the flood protection project and how Phase 5 would work. We came up with some questions, there were some comments, and we wanted to address those comments. When we did that, we showed you a kind of a three-dimensional flyover, a bird's eye view of what the project could look like in, say, 15 years. This is after complete build-out and kind of the vision of where things are going. With that, we're going to show you that first today, and then we have some still photos, still drawings that kind of go in the details of what we wanted to make sure that we hit on. The primary thing we're going to tell you is we're looking at approximately a 42-inch wall in most places, and on that wall we'll have a removable wall on top of it that'll be another 4.5 feet high. Also, we're scheduled for July of 2017, approximately a year from now, starting construction on Phase 5. Phase 5 is from Market Street to just north of the Port Building. So what I first wanted to do is have you take a look at our flyover vision of what the riverfront could look like. And this is showing what we're calling the motor court, right out in front of the auditorium. And it's kind of going back toward the stage now. You can see trees underneath a canopy, some shade structures you see there. A lot of like typical type concrete. You'll see a water feature. You can see some changes made to the stage to try to bring that, make it more active. This is behind the port building, trying to utilize that space. There's a couple of little building additions. We think we have grant potential for one of those very, very quickly. You can see the wall on the right. It doesn't show the extended wall up, but it shows the wall sitting a little back from the river wall, and we'll talk about that later. This view shows some of the large floating docks, a deck that comes off of the port building. As you're going down, a big part of this was a river walk. So you can see a large area for walking, traveling along the river, kind of through the whole area. These trellises and these areas that show bump outs, it's kind of trying to draw attention to the river. You can see there's seating benches and just trying to do some things with grade that will help. When you get back down, now we're getting behind the auditorium. You can see the flags from the memorial. You can see that there's no longer a fountain. We're coming up into that motor court area again. We see the memorial back, and you see the wall goes back now further. You're seeing some seating that could be used so people can be right up against the river at that point. The dark building, the background is a large pump station. It's kind of just showing you the overall view again. And like I said, I have pictures to show some of the details we want to get you to, but we kind of wanted to give you an overall view of how this could look in the future. Next thing I wanted to do is I've got some slides I kind of wanted to go through fairly quickly. As you can see, we just showed you the flyover. We wanted to talk to you about all the input we got from our steering committee, from all the stakeholders. We wanted to talk to you about how we developed this master plan or roadmap. How did we get to this roadmap? Why is that roadmap important to us? The introduction to design. We feel like if we don't have a roadmap that at least tells us where we're going, it's hard for us to get to design, and then if we get to design, we could make some mistakes that'll be costly. That's not where we want to go. We had some concerns, mostly, I would say, in the operations, costly operations. How did we see things we're going to address tonight ahead of time? And then what are our next steps, and then any additional questions. Okay, so we talked about our stakeholder interviews. We did some very extensive information, and we're very happy and proud that we got the information we got. You can see almost all the offices of city staff, the advisory committees for the riverboat, the Steamboat Days Committee. All of those committees, we met separately with them. We've had public meetings, so we've got a lot of information. What I will say is we got to what we thought was fairly close to a consensus plan. No plan's perfect. There's never going to be a roadmap that everybody's going to follow. And I think everybody understands a roadmap is a direction you'd like to go. Money drives the train a lot. And so money will drive this train also. Okay, so this is the overall master plan. A few things to point out. This is the area we're calling the motor court. And we heard, okay, we heard issues about needing a drop-off area. So we made sure we made that. This over in here is a parking area, so people that needed to could park close by. We're looking at redoing parking here, showing the wall coming up here, the wall here, and follows all the way to the north, and then it'll go this way also. Showed improvements in this area. You'll see the red-looking brick, and we're going to show still pictures of this later, but it's trying to draw pictures or draw views from, we know how important the reuse are. So coming down the main streets, you can see all the way to the river. This is just a blow up of in the middle, kind of showing some of that same type of stuff. We got questions about the floating dock, and I'm going to hit that harder a little bit later. We got questions about this water feature, which is a spray ground, and we're going to go into that a little bit further. I think that's just a second picture of similar. So now we're going to get into some of these are more or less pictures from the thing. So it's showing again, there's your motor court, showing the canopy of trees, the shade structures, parking, vehicle parking for over here, for people that need it, that want to be very close to that front door, showing changes in the stage, and this is that spray ground area. All right, just another view showing the memorial at this point. Again, this is showing some of the floating docks. This is behind the memorial. Right now the wall comes up here. It could be used for a seating bench. There is still some thought of maybe you have a seating bench, but you still keep the wall out here. The thought at the time was, let's have this wall back here so there's some area that's low right to the river. So if you wanted to do fishing or something like that, you're not looking over a wall at this point. This is the stage. There was a lot of discussion of how to activate the space, how to make the stage so it kind of fits in a little better and can be used year-round. So that's why you can see these platforms coming up off the sides and trying to better utilize that stage. Just another view of the stage looking out. This is the water function. And this is one, because it's protected now, we think we can give you much better. It is a costly function. It's not part of our Phase 5, but it's something we need to discuss, and I've got some more details on that later. Again, these are docks that we would consider permanent docks, and there's question about whether can you do permanent docks on a riverine environment that has ice. And we're going to show you some that have been done, some precedences. Again, this is a building that would be like a restroom building. We believe that part of our boat ramps and part of our docking can be paid for with a different type of grant, and we think that bathroom, we've done exactly this in Clinton just recently. Again, showing the river walk, which everybody thought was very important. Kind of an overview. Again, showing the wall, how that wall would look here. The seating bench, and how the site goes up a little bit, and then the docks on the other side. Shade structures. Shade became important. A lot of people were talking that shade was interesting. So these are shade structures. Again, not in Phase 5, but they're definitely in it. Kind of showing the green areas versus what is there's still quite a bit of concrete, trying to meet all the functions that are done in this area right now. Steamboat days, October days, all the different things.
What about the trees, Leo?
We're going to get to the trees, but the trees, what we're interested in on trees is high canopy, so you can see underneath it. So when they have steamboat days, the trees aren't a problem. So that's very important. Another thing, we showed you here where there used to be a ramp just on the south side of the auditorium. We're taking that ramp away, and we're reconfiguring the south ramp in order to make it so it's much more usable. What we find is the south ramp doesn't get used. It doesn't have proper docking. It doesn't. So we're thinking redo the south ramp so that it's in a much more usable state than it is now.
Also reconfigure the south parking lot with more
Oh, that's true.
trailer and truck parking.
Trailer parking. Trailer parking is very important. So this whole, oops, let's go back. This parking lot would be reconfigured and done much better for trailer parking. Thank you. Okay, questions and concerns that came up. Stage conditions. This is what you currently have. And a lot of times the groups that come in like that because they don't want any stairways coming up to the front. We were trying to activate that a little bit more. So ideas came of, for instance, putting stairs up like this, but then being able to cover them during Burlington steamboat days. You know, some people liked it, some people didn't. We have a number of different options. The option on the bottom is the option that we put in the master plan. It doesn't mean that exactly it has to be this way, but what we know is we can't do something like this, and we need to be looking at something closer to this. Those are decisions that can be made later. Those are design decisions. We're just telling you where we're at and how we got to here on the master plan. Same thing, here goes the roofing. Currently, during steamboat days, you guys put on some kind of a roofing system. Well, we thought about maybe putting a shade structure, and this has done precedences in other communities. This is a shade structure that maybe can function the same way, and you can get a little bit more bang for your buck and have that as a year-round. And these are year-round down here. Winter, ice rink research. We looked at it quite a bit. It's very expensive. A lot of people thought having some kind of winter function was important. But when we started looking at the funding of it, and it cost, you know, $300,000-$400,000 to do it, the question became maybe not. Other communities, for instance, I used to live in Louisville, they do it. They'll bring this in as a temporary, and that's exactly what this has shown. And maybe they do it 1 year as a temporary to see whether it is the attraction everybody thinks it is. So that's something we think that you might want to look at in the future. It's not really part of the master plan, but it's something that we think there's space to do it, and we figured out that there's a way to do that. It's not, like I said, we did not include that as part of the master plan.
So you can rent it, you can rent that facility for 1 year at a time, just to try it out and
Absolutely.
See if it's economically feasible.
I'm gonna, when you have some input, could you make sure you move closer to the mic so that everybody can hear that from at home, please?
What he did say was that you can rent that rink any particular year, and there's companies that will come and set the whole thing up for you. And a lot of communities, before they'd buy one, they'd rent it to see, is it really going to work out for their community? Another question that was brought up is the North Boat Launch. The North Boat Launch is used a lot. It seems to be a very well liked by a lot of the community. Well, we believe, the design people more than anything else, think you could reconfigure that and do a little bit more in this area and get more bang for your buck. At this point, we put it into the master plan, but it's not something that's part of our funding at this point. And if funding comes later, we'd come back to you. But at this point, we'll leave it alone. But we were thinking this might be something in the future you really want to look at. It helps with parking, loading, that type of thing. Here we go, the same thing, flood wall design. We're not to the point where we're picking out the exact type of wall yet. What we are saying is it's going to be something like this, and we'll come back to you. We wanted to show you where the flood wall was, how it would work, but you're going to have some kind of a setup like this with wall on top, with removable wall on top of the wall, just like this. Davenport did it. We just finished one in Ottumwa. This seems to be extremely common now. Paving patterns or something else we're going to come back to you on.
Leo?
Yes.
Could you go back to that flood wall for just a second?
Yes, sir. This one?
Yep. I just want, we've had a lot of conversations about, I mean, this is the main purpose for doing this whole project, is to get a flood wall up. What is the height that this flood wall gets to when fully implemented?
It's approximately 9 feet high. So the flood wall would be 42 inches, which is about a 100-year storm. And then the top of the flood wall would be about a 500-year storm.
And to what foot?
I think that's
river?
28 on your gauge.
28 feet was what we asked that this
Yes,
get designed
yes.
to.
Which is a major.
What's our highest flood that we've had occur here?
25 feet, I think.
25.8. It was projected at that point 26.2 or something like that.
Yeah, the levee broke.
When the levee broke.
Yeah,
And our goal was to have more than that. We wanted to have at least a foot. Having 2 feet above that was something that you have to have 1 foot for your what do you call that?
Freeboard.
Freeboard. And I wanted an extra foot beyond that, for what any flood had been up to that point. And with some of the changes that have come down with, or are in the process with FEMA, that actually having that 2 feet is becoming now the new standard,
It is becoming a standard.
so.
This is a substantive flood wall that every group, FEMA, the Corps, everybody will buy into the height of this flood wall.
No, you're saying it's not determined yet what the composition of that wall will be made of, or is it a
The
standard?
composition of this wall is gonna be a concrete wall. What the look is gonna be, what the pattern of the wall is gonna be, has not been decided.
All right, and the one they added on the top is gonna look like this? here
It's
on-
gonna look similar to this, yes. Now, where we have openings in the wall, and we kept those openings fairly small, then you'll see it go all the way down. And I have a picture that's gonna show you that coming up. Ready for me to go? Again, we're just showing paving patterns and things that are done to show some of the area. Okay, this is kind of an important area. This is an area where we're saying, okay, we know we have $26.2 million to build a flood protection project. We know that of that $26.2 million, we can only use so much for beautification. And we have about $880,000 in this first phase that we can use for beautification. The numbers we put up here, we show about $1 million. You know, we can get closer as we go to design, go up and down. But what we were thinking is this alternate right here is an alternate one that focuses between the Memorial Building and the Port Building. And it focuses you in there. It loses only 23 spaces of parking. So you'll have all your parking left in here as we start out, except for 23 spaces.
Leo,
Yes, sir?
as you're doing this, that big grand scheme that you had thrown up before with the video was the overall potential
15
future
years
spot where
down,
we
20
might
years
get
down
to.
the road, right.
A lot of that stuff that was shown in that video that is to the west of this area that's all things that could potentially happen. They would all require some funding beyond what we're looking at currently.
Correct.
So this is the part that fits within the money that we've received from the state to do.
Correct.
The other pieces will all be contingent upon having some funding source identified in the future, but we wanted to make sure that this first part was done in a way that accommodated any future work that might happen. So it fit, that it was in harmony with anything that might future be done.
Right. That's the key word, is it?
But-
That we make it fit together if that other funding comes.
But this can function on its own as a standalone.
Absolutely.
Even if the other funding isn't done, this can still be something that functions just as it is.
And then this, so this is alternate one. The next alternate shows putting more of the money kind of behind the Memorial Auditorium, keeping this much narrower here, so you don't have as much of the river walk, and you do keep more, I guess, that row of parking. But it doesn't, in my opinion, it puts more of the money back here versus between the two buildings. So those are alternates that we really haven't decided, but we need to figure out whether we want to do this one or this one here.
And again, this first phase, phase 5, I hate having the first phase be phase 5.
I don't like it either. We all agree.
But it's a $5.6 million overall project, including all the engineering fees that go with
Yes.
it. And we have a lot of front-loaded engineering fees because it has some of this preliminary design work done for
That's right.
for the other phases too. The majority of the money that goes with this project is going to be for the flood wall itself. You're going to see about $4 million will be on that flood wall itself.
Right.
The remaining, as you mentioned, Leo's mentioning here, just shy of 900,000 will go into some of the soft costs on the right immediately to the back side of the flood wall.
Right.
Does that make sense? And he's giving you two different options here for where do you want that focus of that money to be? Do you want it to be immediately to the east of the auditorium in that second alternate, or do you want it to be between the auditorium and a port where you will lose some parking spots, but you lose I think 20
23 spots.
23 spots, but you have your money put in a spot where it's easily visible.
Right.
From my perspective, putting it out there where you have the improvements done in a spot that's visible is a major benefit, but that's kind of a priority thing that you as a group need to decide.
Okay, so at this point, unless we hear different, we're probably gonna be looking at more on this alternate one. If you would prefer, we can hear back, but that's the direction we seem to want to go unless we hear different from you. I guess our steering committee didn't really volley in either way, that to me, they were more looking at the bigger picture. All right, so now alternative 2 there. Now, we get to where are we at from a design level? And like Jim said, a lot of things, especially from the engineering perspective, have been very much front-loaded. For instance, we've surveyed everything. We've got our geotech, all of our borings are complete. We did our report. One thing that you see that we did change just recently, we had the wall sitting back maybe 5 feet from the river wall. And our intent there was if we have to put a new foundation down. But your engineering department found all the old geotechnical reports from when the river wall was constructed. It has dead men going back. Our structural people really liked it. So at this point, we're thinking we're going to have that wall really close to the river, and that's what we wanted. We can use a lot of what's there already. So that was great news for us. Initial wall foundation studies. We still have other places where we have lots of foundation issues. We have foundations on pump stations we have to look at. Storm sewer, how our pump stations are going to be sized. We have to have all that kind of done before we go. We don't have to have final design of our pump stations, but we have to know where they're going to be and start to tile everything in. Our wall alignment, we've been working on that a lot. Horizontal, vertical is underway. Where are our spaces going to be? We haven't started this very well yet, but our operation plan, this is something that's important. When you have a flood, for instance, next year under construction, what are you going to do? How are you going to do it? Once we get this first phase 5, done, what are you going to be able to do and how are you going to pump? Are we going to be able to make things easier for you? And we are. So that's part of our plan here. And then we really want to get started on the final plans and specs. The 2 pictures I showed were some pretty important pictures. One shows a wall on top of a wall at the Davenport Stadium. This is constructed every year. They construct almost as much flood wall as you're going to construct in your downtown, all the way around the stadium, 3 sides of it anyway. They do it with 8 men in a week. Now, they said they've gotten a lot better. It didn't take a week at first. It used to take them a month, but now they use two different types of end loaders. They use different type of equipment, and they get this thing done. You can see here where it's complete walls where there's nothing. So you could drive, so people can walk and drive through, and they have to put these little spacers up and all that type of thing. So that's all in our design right now of how are we going to do that and where are we going to do that. Okay, get back to some of the questions I heard. Spray pad. And Mr. Scott, you had mentioned to me that you had heard spray pads are very expensive and very difficult. The one you have here, we're going to do a little better than that because first of all, we're going to be able to protect it from floodwater, and that's one of your problems. But these spray pads aren't cheap to do, and they're not cheap to keep working. We went up to Racine, Wisconsin, and JJR had done this one up in Racine, I'd say 5 to 8 years ago. They asked Racine, they've made some changes. It's a winter climate, it's a new spray pad. There's 2 basic types. One is you recirculate the water and keep using it, but then you have to treat the water, and it's much more expensive. That's what this is. It costs them $40,000 a year, they said, on average, to run this thing and keep it workable. There's always little problems that come up and things like that. So it's a $40,000 a year. However, they say it's hugely popular in Racine, and they're doing things all the time to try to make it less costly, but they really think it's a big bonus. So I just wanted to let you know, I'm not arguing that it's a very expensive thing. We haven't made the decisions yet, and like Jim said, this isn't part of phase 5. We can come back to you later and say this is what we propose or don't propose. Whether we do the recirculating kind or the type that you just put water in and send it to a storm sewer.
Can you verify on the Racine deal, can you is that a Cadillac or is it a Cavalier? You know,
We think it's the Cadillac.
Okay.
So that's what we're showing you. We're showing you their Cadillac of what they, but I'd say as we get closer, and if we find grants to help buy this, it might be worth going to visit cities like this. And so that's what I'm saying. I think I like it in the plan. I'm not ready to recommend going forward. I think it's a part of the plan that if you get grant money and you can make it work, wonderful, but you don't have to tell us yes, no, or different at this point. So that's my opinion on where we're at with this one. Next big question that came up was floating docks, and I'm sorry, but this pictures didn't come out as well as I wanted. I had to, but so this is your floating dock. We do envision it staying in year round. We do realize it's a fast Mississippi River, especially during high water, and we have moving ice and problems. So the one I'm most familiar with is a very small one. I can't even hardly see it, but right here in Clinton, they have a small one that sits right out. I took this picture that shows you it's on the bend of a river, bend of the Mississippi River. I don't think they've had much problems. I docked in on it last year. We constructed it, say, 5 years ago, and I think that it's constructed. What I'm trying to tell you is we can do the engineering to make sure this works and works right for you. Here's one down in St. Paul, Minnesota, very similar to what JJR has in mind for you. A much bigger dock than Clinton that moves up and down and stays year-round in St. Paul on the Mississippi River, and it definitely has some of the same problems. Those are great questions, and we understand there's problems, but I think we can engineer through these problems. Okay, parking is another one, and we've been dealing with parking on this project from start to finish. So we understand parking is an issue. And this is just showing your north parking lot. What we showed here is during steamboat days, how does the parking lot look? How does it look during a typical day? And this is just saying the north parking lots. We understand that you had my eyes aren't as good as they used to be. I have to turn a page. We know that you have your parking study. So it shows that this north parking lot, it shows that the numbers are that the very far north one is used at about 5% average. This one here is about 9%, and then as you get closer here, it's this one right here is about 7% usage during a typical day. This came from your parking study. This one here is the south parking lot, and again, we know in the south that this one, I went there today, that's 53%. On the other side of the building, it is 35% here and 1% here. So we realize we've got to do some things. If we're taking parking away, we've got to improve other parking lots and provide a little bit more parking. And we think we've done that in these plans. This shows kind of the plan of how the parking will be, assuming a full build-out. As we said, phase 5, you're only going to lose 23 spots. But assuming a full build-out, we're talking about improving the boat parking here for trailer parking. We think that's real important, that if we can get that done. Improve the parking behind the auditorium. So during events, that's your primary parking spots. Have a small parking here, have parking here and here that's associated with our drop-off zone in here. And then, of course, this is a little bit north, that parking lot. We also thought if this ever did get done, then you do have additional parking you probably could use, and it might be a little easier to use that. So we've definitely tried to address some of the parking. We realize it's still an issue. Here's, again, getting back to our phase 5, this row right here of 23 spots is all you lose. All the rest of this stays. So in a way, you can kind of start out and see how this works if we would do that. And that's what we're proposing at this point. And we're not trying to say to you that this master plan is the Bible and can't be changed. We're more than willing to change it. What we're saying to you is we want to know if we're going in the right direction. And really, for phase 5, what, are we doing anything in phase 5 that we shouldn't be doing? And that's really my critical thing. If you don't want me to do phase 5 and you don't want me to take that row of parking out, I kind of need to hear that pretty quick. Maybe not now, but in the next month, we need to know that, or we're going to be making plans to redo this. All right, with that, sorry about taking so much time, but I thought a lot of this was important. Council work session, I meant to say council session tonight. What we're really trying to show you here is we're coming back to you for a lot more guidance. We're hoping mid-August to have a steering committee meeting. Start to get into some of what these materials really are going to look like. What are the material selections? Give us some help in that area. We're going to have a big regulatory meeting, probably late August, early September. After that meeting, I'd like to come back and give you an update of saying, hey, this is where we're at. Good. In the fall, we want to have plans and specs going. But once we're done with plans and specs, we have to have a public hearing and have council approval. So we're going to come back to you with our phase 5 plans and specs complete before we go out to bid. So that's in the January, February time frame. Then we're saying in the spring of 2007, we actually do the bidding and start construction July 2017. So it seems like we got a lot of time with a year, but that time goes by fast. With that, I will take any additional questions, comments, concerns. I didn't know if you want others to.
That's kind of up to the council how they want to do this, so.
Council, did you guys have, well, let's deal with the audience first, and I'll let you guys go. Before I open it up for questions and comments, I have had occasion where people have come down and given their magnum opus, and we have, I don't want to labor with this all night long, and I'm trying to limit redundancy, so I'm going to take comments. I'm going to ask you to keep them to 2 to 3 minutes, please. So is there any questions or comments tonight? Do you have comments, questions?
I'm Dave Weimer. I'm with the Riverfront Committee. Matt couldn't be here tonight, neither could Charlie Walsh. We took a vote to tell you what amenities we would like to see included. One was a splash pad. It can be done, not as big as what was shown, but can be done to keep the fountain. That's 2. 3, it was to keep the 400-foot by 20-foot floating dock. And you talked about it. He didn't even mention the ice rink tonight, but we didn't vote for that either. Those are our 3 items that we would like to see included in the riverfront.
You said you wanted the ice rink?
No, we did not.
Okay.
They're too expensive. They're enough said. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dave.
Hey, Dave, just one question on that, on the splash pad. If we get a grant for it, do you want it? And if we don't get a grant for it, do you think the city should pay for the splash pad?
The splash pad that he showed was astronomical. 40,000, he said.
40,000 a year. 40,000 a year to maintain.
Yeah, there
That's
can
not
be
construction.
an easier splash pad than that, and you could dump the water to the river and just use new water in it. I think you sort of have a splash pad there right now that is right in front of the auditorium.
But you didn't answer his question.
My question is, there's a construction cost. We have no idea what that is
I
right
have
now.
no idea, no.
We
just would like to see it.
The plan that's as proposed would be that it would be paid for with a grant. If that grant did not become available, is there still support from your group to construct one of those and pay for it with tax dollars?
Well, that 900,000 that you have that can be used for amenities on this thing.
No, it can't be used for that. And that
Okay.
there's a lot more.
I don't know whether
that-
you can get a grant for a splash pad or not.
Well, that's key, but that's,
Yeah.
there's.
If you can't do it,
They,
fine, but we
they
would.
have said that they've got different areas that they can get grants for different things. So
Yes, I know.
There's, I mean, but my question still remains is, if that grant money's not available for that, would they still support that? You don't have to answer that because you're not with your group, but will they still support the construction of a splash pad if we use tax dollars? And that's the question you take back to them.
Our committee just makes recommendations to you.
I understand, that's what I want to hear.
We would like to see a splash pad. Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you, Mr. Weimer. Yes, sir. She's a fast one.
I'll tell you
Get
what,
there
this
quick.
Riverfront Advisory Committee, I'm also on that, of course you know that, because they appointed me again tonight. Thank you. I thought the presentation was wonderful. I want to congratulate the gentleman and his company for doing such a great job. Thank you. And I thought it was beautiful. I sent a quick note out today to the council, and I think most of you probably read it and got it. And as far as what I think the citizens, what we feel the citizens would like, and of course, I'm assuming that they would like this. The splash pad, which I feel is a very important feature, even though it's not even going to be in phase 5 right now, that you're not even worried about that. I feel it's a very important feature, and I think it will bring people down to the riverfront. This is a river town. We were raised in a river town. We should be able to see the river and enjoy it and be at this type of a place. If people object, which I feel that this is the only objection on this plan, is going to be on the parking. If people object to 24 cars being parked there, I think that's sad. I think it's very sad. I think that we can find other options so that we can enjoy the river the way it's meant to be enjoyed. You can do a shuttle bus to these events down at the auditorium. That can either be funded by the event people or by the city. You could also do valet parking. That's not a foreign term, but valet parking actually happens in a lot of cities, and I think that that would be another option. The sponsors of the events can afford to do that or should be able to provide that. And otherwise, I think that if you could just consider what's really important to the city is that the children can enjoy the riverfront as I did when I grew up. We all grew up on this river, and I think that the children should be allowed to have the same privileges that are growing up today. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
My name's Newt Colburn, and I'm on the Riverfront Advisory Committee also. And my main concern is the north boat ramp. From what I've heard, it sounds like they're not going to do anything with it right now. It's going to stay put, right? Yes. Okay. Because the north boat ramp is the only boat ramp in the city that's put in according to engineering specifications. None of the south boat ramps are put in correctly. In fact, back in '95, I gave the city a drawing on the south boat ramp, but they said we can't put it in that way because they lose too many parking spaces. So at any rate, it's just a comment that I wanted to make. The main thing, my main concern is the north boat ramp is the one we got to keep, and we got to have room for trailer parking by it.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Comments? Counselor.
Becky Anderson, 218 South 6th Street. I wanted to come and speak in favor of the splash pad also. I like the plans that were presented tonight, and boy, if we could see that all the way through, I think it would be great. I know it's going to take a long time, but I served on the Vision Iowa board for a little over a year. We had several communities come up and ask for funding for splash pads, and these were usually small communities that couldn't afford pools, and it was looked on very favorably by the Vision Iowa board. It is an amenity that a lot of communities want. I think it's an amenity that we should have in this community. I do think there would be a big chance that the Vision, if there's funding at that level, that they would give funding for that, but they will not pay for all of it, of course. I think too, you know, I'm very involved in the development of the downtown and the future of this area. And I just want to stress that we need to look at the future. We need to look at what, you know, what's right for the young people and the people that are going to look at this as their home and, you know, and have good memories here. I guess I think, you know, I didn't grow up in Burlington, but we used to come to Burlington for family events at Crapo Park and the slide there. You know, that was my wonderful memory of Burlington. I live here now, and I just think we have to have things for young people. I think the splash pad is a great thing to put down there, and I like the whole plan.
Thank you, Becky.
Thank you very much. Any other comments, questions? From anyone besides, we'll take Dean, then we'll take Chelsea.
Okay,
May,
I'm
and then
Dean, I'm a Burlingtonian, I live here. Basically about this, you got, so big monies will not be protected, they're gonna be on their own. You're gonna put a higher wall up, and where's the water gonna go? Well, it's gonna go over toward the railroad depot, which they spend $1 billion rebuilding. Then you're gonna have to come back and say, well, we're gonna put a wall up there to protect that area. You gotta put walls up higher to protect the city. And if I was 1900, I would have never let the Port of Burlington and Torrance be built there. I would have let it just be a park, because I ride my bike down there. I start Northern Drive, ride my bike down there. You do need some protection. But it's just like you're gonna have the water going to Illinois, and that's gonna put more pressure on their levee and all of that. Parking, basically, I'm sorry people, but I hate to be mean, but you take that parking away, what about the people working down there? Where are they gonna park? Then you're gonna have the Cubs complain about there's no parking down there. I mean, that's the problem you're gonna have. I mean, this is just my opinion. I mean, I like the riverfront. About those water spots, I mean, to me, I don't see the big deal. And about an ice rink, we do have winters where it's warm and mild. And you can never count on the weather. And I've been coming here, you people to see you do a good job, but I remember where you complain about we were in debt and we'd have the money to pay our bills. And it seems like, I'm sorry people, but it seems like there's some people who think, let's spend. Well, I love this city, I like this city, I lived here all my life, but we should remember we can only spend what we can spend. And unless you want to go through that where we kept on borrowing, spending, when we didn't have the money, it's up to you people. But I'm just sorry to be a sour note, but it's just that the more higher you make the levee, the further the river goes down the stream. And other people have the same problem. But that's just my opinion.
Thank you, Dean.
Thank you, Dean.
And you have a right to your opinion. Chelsea May. And then we'll get to the guy that looks like Leon Shahan.
Chelsea Toll, Executive Director of the Greater Burlington Convention and Visitors Bureau, and one of our divisions with the CVB is the Port of Burlington Welcome Center. I can tell you that my staff is very excited to have this flood protection plan in place. I think the engineers are on the right track with the overall plan. I know we will take a long time to get there, but I think they're on the right track. We've had to close the Welcome Center a number of years, so looking forward to not having to do that anymore. As you're aware, tourism in Des Moines County is one of our fastest growing industries, and one of the biggest critiques that I hear from my peers across the state is that we have a beautiful riverfront, we don't use it to its fullest potential. I think this will get us there. It'll help bring in more visitors, plus get our residents out and about and enjoying the community. So thank you for your support in this project.
Thank you, Chelsea.
Thank you.
Well said.
Mr. Shahan, we'll get you
Leon Shahan, 1821 Mount Pleasant Street. I guess I got a technical question on this project. I know she had the flood wall along the river, but where's the protection on either the north end or the south end? Because when the river floods, it goes as far in as Main Street easily. That's one question to address. The other question I have and all about the height of the flood wall is the river seems to be, in its existing channel, seems to be silting in more and more and more. I was looking last night in preparing for this meeting. You look at the flood crests in the past 100+ years, every crest is worse than the other. And you can kind of look at what happened at Gulfport in 2008. Basically, we wound up, the riverbed is higher than Gulfport, and I had to pump the water out of there. So no matter what kind of flood wall you put in today, 10 years, 15 years from now, the riverbed is probably going to be higher than what? The other thing, the use of this area is dependent on, in a large part, what we do with steamboat days. Those kinds of festivals, to say the least, are struggling these days. That's an issue. How much money do we want to spend based on what's happening now, what we think will happen in the future? Another item, as far as the river is concerned, the way the flood protection is done from the Iowa River, basically northeast of Oakville on down, is a somewhat unstable situation. It's somewhat remote, but a possibility the river, both the Iowa and Mississippi River, could wind up on the wrong side of the levee. How does that affect what we're doing here? And there was, in the flood of 2008, they did have a close call with exactly that happening. And from my understanding, talking to people in the know, the Corps of Engineers is really not as active as perhaps they should be in remedying the problem with the silting in the river, if they can do anything for it. And I think, I'm not going to say one way or another whether this is a good plan or a bad plan, but Old Man River is pretty unpredictable.
I actually agree with one point that you made, is the 28 feet high enough, thinking ahead. And should we take the plunge and go a little bit higher than that now?
Leo, you want to kind of address the first point in terms of tying into how it ties over east-west and...
Yeah, we do have a whole plan for tie-off on both the upstream and the downstream. Both of them will take railroad closures, and then the one in the downstream will be going up Market Street and tying into the high ground. We've been coordinating with the railroad. On the north side, we'd be again crossing the Burlington Short Railroad and tying into the high ground of the for the highway. So that takes care of the tie-offs. I think we can make that happen. The question about is it high enough? I will tell you that a 500-year storm plus 3 feet is a very big storm, and I don't think anybody is designing for a much higher flood than what you're designing for. I understand that it always can be overtopped. I realize that, but this levee will be the highest, if not very close to the highest on the Mississippi River.
How much does the Corps let you go above that anyway?
There would be questions. There would be questions on why are you going so high and what are you trying to, they would probably, more than anything, you'd be getting questions from the Corps to FEMA, who's funding this, saying that you're being too excessive. So FEMA right now has agreed to the 28 foot. If we tried to go higher, we'd definitely have to go back through the approval for the money.
They tend to not want you to overbuild.
Right.
And whether it makes sense long-term or not, that's really the process.
I understand everybody, believe me, I've been in the flood control business for 40 years, so I realize I was a design engineer for Hannibal. Their flood control project is a 500+1, and they've had water pretty close to the top of theirs also. Never overtopped it, but close. So.
And us being 500 plus close to 3 is pretty much, I haven't heard anyone
when you're talking about 100-year, when you're talking about 100 or a 500-year flood, 1 foot is huge. I mean huge, because the water spreads out so wide. So I think you're gonna be tremendously well protected, and I think if you ask for higher, you're getting into funding issues.
Can I ask a question while you're there?
Yes, sir.
According to this picture, it looks like there's a double wall. Is that the idea?
No, that wasn't the intent. That's just a picture that doesn't look real, what it was is it's trying to show the river wall and then the wall 5 feet inside of the river wall. I think I told you, we're gonna now have the river wall and
Right
the
on it.
protection wall right on top
Right
of
on
the
top
river
of it,
wall.
okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, at first, we thought we had to design it with a setback.
Yeah.
We don't.
In terms of timing, Phase 5 on the north side of the port will construct the wall, or that's pretty much temporary wall going east-west there.
Correct.
It'll be set up for that east-west temporary wall to go over to the tracks, but not to do the rail barrier.
Not to do
That
the rail.
is the third or fourth phase.
I wanna say the third phase.
Which would
the
be
rail-
like
the rail.
2021, where those rail closures are done.
Anybody that's dealt with railroads, it takes quite a while to get final approval. So we've been dealing with them, and they were part of our stakeholder groups that came and met with us, and we had very good discussions with them. But to get final signing on a dotted line, it'll take us a while.
So, for example, if you get this part of the process done in 2017, and if we have flooding in 2018, we will be using HESCO barriers to block that.
You would be
on
using
that
HESCO.
connection. And then on the south side of the lift station, south of the auditorium, Phase 5 is designed to take that as far west on Market Street as what funding allows.
We're probably only gonna get to around the lift station, and then it's gonna be HESCO barriers again.
Yes.
But again, that's going up into the higher part, so again, it's gonna take a big flood to have to do too much.
Right.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
David Notchick, 206 North 3rd Street. As a resident of downtown, definitely love the riverfront, and I definitely love this idea. Basically making it into more of a park area rather than a giant parking lot. And I definitely like the idea of what we're doing with the wall as well, having it removable and things like that, because what we do now kind of looks like we just threw it together last minute. Oh, I hope it works. So, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
That kind
And
of
we really
is
don't
what-
throw it together.
That is kind of what we do, is throw it together at the last minute and hope it works too, unfortunately.
One final comment for me. It says you're going to accept the design phase tonight. I hope you pass a resolution for that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else before we move forward? Yes, sir.
I guess I would just like to offer my support for this. I think it's a great idea. I don't think that parking is really
Can I
that.
get your, I'm sorry, name and address,
Oh,
please?
I'm sorry.
That's all
My
right.
name's Andrew Mahoney, 715 Blackhawk Boulevard, or Drive, depending on the map. And I just think it's a great idea. I don't think parking is as big of an issue as people make it out to be. I just think that if you go to a bigger city, you're going to end up walking a lot further. And I think our goal is to grow and become a bigger city. And I think we're doing a lot of good things downtown right now. And I think just see this as an extension of that. I moved away about 9 years ago, moved back about 2 years ago, and I just see so much positive change downtown.
Yeah.
And I just really want to see that ball keep rolling as someone that's planning on setting down roots here and staying long term. So I think it's a good idea, and the splash pad looks cool. So
We're glad to have you back, and you're wearing Greyhound colors, kinda, almost.
Yeah.
Almost. Mr. Freeberg.
I wasn't going to say anything. Steve Freevert, Executive Director of Downtown Partners. I just want everybody to know I did not pay Andrew to say that. So. but we appreciate it anyways. And we appreciate all the time that the consultants have put into this, the city staff, the stakeholder group. It's been a well thought out plan, certainly not polished, and that will come along in the next decade, 2 decades, however long it takes us to get there. But I very much appreciate the point that the fact that we're at this point. Great going to everybody who's been working on it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments before we close? Good deal. I just want to say thanks to everybody. You guys have been fantastic, for and against. It's okay to go against the grain. You were civil, and we appreciate your comments tonight. Did you have something?
I just wanted to say, I did say that tongue-in-cheek, following up on your comments on whether we're prepared or not, or haphazard last minute. The HESCO barriers were bought 2008 timeframe. Is that correct? 2009, after the 2008 flood. And they were bought primarily with the purpose of protecting the auditorium and the lift station, not really provide with the intent of protecting the whole downtown area. And it's morphed over the years. The last time we put those up, we were able to get protection up and down Front Street and up Market Street. We've been able to expand those a little bit and move beyond what our goal for protection was, to try to protect the downtown area. We do have a plan in place in terms of how to use them, and our Public Works Department's put a lot of time and effort into it. It's not adequate for what the needs are. And that's really long and short of where we got to, where we had $26 million offered to the city to be able to do this project. It's not free money, it is state money. So it's not as if this isn't taxpayer money going into this, but this is money that the state is providing to us to be able to provide some protection. And part of the reason that they're looking to do it, they're trying to mitigate their losses. They've sunk a lot of money into rebuilding efforts over the years in this area. And they want to try to help invest money on the front end to try to avoid those costs in the future.
I just piggyback on that. There is no return back to normal from something catastrophic. There isn't. So there is a price tag that comes with trying to avoid situations like that. And we do have an opportunity to do something good here for the community. So nothing else then?
Nope.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just think that, you've answered a lot of the questions that we had and maybe a lot of what the public has had. Alternative 1 looks great for only losing 23 spots, parking spots. And I think later on down the road, when we're able to rehab our current parking lots that aren't utilized as much, it won't be as big of an issue. People won't be as concerned. And of course, the splash pad. I remember playing in the one we have when I was a kid, and I remembered that it was the best thing ever.
Was that 3 years ago?
Yeah, 3 years ago. So I just remember me and my friends played in that a lot, and it would be nice for something, even a small one. It doesn't have to be an extravagant Cadillac. That's all I have.
Actually, I was closing it down for the audience. Council? Comments?
I've got a few, Mayor. I'm not opposed to any of this that's being presented, but I've had a lot of people that have contacted me that's got some objections. And my big concern was that everybody thought we were going to approve that big master plan that was presented at first, that flyover. That's not what we're doing. And I wanted the public to know that it's pretty limited on what is being presented tonight and what the council will approve. And these aren't the final plans. This is just an idea of what can be done, and it gives them a starting point to do some plans and specs. But I kind of chuckled to myself about some of this, because in the 1970s, when they closed off Jefferson Street and put that fountain in, the same group of people came down and said to the council, that's a great thing to do. And it was going to bring business downtown, and it was going to do this, and it was going to do that. And it was a huge failure. And I'm not saying the same thing of this, I'm just saying what's going through my mind. And then when we done the improvements 10 or 12 years ago on the riverfront and raised the riverfront and changed the entire look from what it had looked like as when I was a kid growing up to what it looks like now, it was a huge change. But one of the big discussion items was the water features, and that was the fountains that were on the downtown, and these or that were put on the riverfront. And these plans call for, pretty much for the elimination of those, so. And they were going to draw people downtown. And I've seen dozens and dozens of couples just getting married that stood up on that fountain and got their pictures taken. So it did draw people to the downtown, so it did have an effect. But I am concerned for those who have expressed concern to me about losing parking spaces. Now, with the plan that I see here, I don't think it's going to be a major issue for anybody, except when they have special events at the auditorium. And hopefully they're able to work that out on their own. Maybe we can provide more specialty parking, additional handicap parking, maybe senior only parking or something like that, or like Joanne proposed, trying to tell the promoters, this is the issue that we've got. The parking is further away. Maybe you want to provide some shuttle service for that. The other thing is, my other concern is the operating cost. And we talked for 4 or 5 years about closing the pool out at the park because we weren't able to come up with the funding. And at the last minute, we made changes, we increased cost, we had people donate money just to keep the swimming pool open. And fortunately, our financial situation has turned around a little bit, but we're gonna add some operating costs. And the one thing I gotta know before we turn the water on is it going to be sustainable? And it's gonna be up to Jim and our finance department to let us know whether it is or not before that comes final. It's beautiful, it's nice. I'd love to bring my grandkids down and let them run through there, and they would have an absolute blast. They would want to definitely do that, and I wouldn't want to deny them unless we can't keep the water turned on, and we can't let the water run out of it and run out into the Mississippi because the cost we pay for water services just like everybody else does. I think we're on the right track. The flood mitigation is the right thing. And the floating dock is my boardwalk. And I've wanted a boardwalk on the riverfront forever, so that 20-foot by 400-foot floating dock is as close as I'm gonna get. And I'm a Pisces. I love the water. I've swam in that Mississippi. I've skied in the Mississippi. And just like this young man right here has. And I think we both have a real love for the Mississippi. So I'm in favor of the plan. I'm not in favor of all parts of it, but we'll have to take it as it comes.
I'm very much enthused about the plan. I'm very respectful of the engineering that's going into this. I mean, this is being done very professionally, and that's the only way you should do it. And I hope too that eventually we can keep kids in mind as far as features downtown. I think we adults sometimes forget what maybe the kids want. The kids don't come down here and talk to us. And so if we can do some things like the splash pad, I think that would be great. I know we're not committing to that today, but I'm just enthused about it. I think it's another step forward for Burlington. I think as we bring people into our community and create more jobs, seeing what's being done down here it's just a positive thing. I'm all for it.
What I was interested in hearing is exactly what it is that we're voting on. And I'm definitely not in favor of voting on that big master plan. That's not in the picture, so I'm glad that you focused and told us exactly what we're doing. And I'm with you, Councilwoman Wilson, that alternative 1 is better than the alternative 2. And so that would be my preference. Yes. Even though the 23 stalls are gone, I don't see that as a major deal.
No.
The rest of the stuff, some things I don't agree with, I won't vote for them, but this part, I'm on. I think that's why we're here, right?
Yes.
Do the flood wall. All this other stuff is stuff.
That's right. It's the dressing.
Let's take care of business. Let's take it to vote.
Let's vote.
Wilson?
Aye.
Davidson?
Aye.
Fleming,
Aye.
McCampbell,
Aye.
Scott.
All right.
All right, thank you, guys. Thank you, folks.
All right.
Your Honor, I move we amend the encroachment policy for the city of Burlington, Iowa.
Second.
This is in addition to the encroachment policy brought forward, specifically addressing sidewalk cafes. This went to the Planning Commission at their June 21st meeting and was recommended for approval 4-0. This was added to the encroachment policy to better distinguish and encourage these uses where they're able to meet the encroachment requirements. Our current policy, it's kind of, I guess, vague in the sense of whether it's a permanent encroachment or temporary encroachment, and then how it falls within those regulations. So this sets out a specific requirement for sidewalk cafes. It's intended to be a kind of a temporary change to the policy, evaluated at the end of the year if there's any other changes that need to be brought forward for this, or I guess, or if it's felt that it meets the goals that we're looking for with it, that it could stay within the existing policy. But some of the requirements for the sidewalk cafes, it's a $25 permit. Goes to the city manager for approval, similar to the temporary encroachment, so it doesn't have the lengthy approval process of going through a hearing in city council, such as permanent encroachments. Couple of the other requirements, contiguous to the side of a building, part of an existing business, used for purposes allowed within the zoning district, open during operation of the adjoining business. If they do require or desire to have more permanent features, those portions would have to go through the permanent encroachment policy, but generally this would apply to tables, chairs, umbrellas, different things of that nature placed outside for enjoyment and use by patrons of that business. So tried to make it a little easier, streamline the process a little bit more, and make it so that more people could enjoy the sidewalks and outdoor space downtown where it's available. So
My only question was, because this is for downtown, but I didn't read it that way.
our encroachment policy applies to anywhere. They would have to have the space and be approved. Downtown's the only space that has the sidewalk in a larger area. I guess if a business had a larger area outside of downtown, it potentially could apply, but it'd have to meet all the requirements, and I don't know that there's any other areas that have that.
I just thought to maybe save some hassle as we move forward with this, that it would be written up that we're going to try this in the downtown area alone. But that was my only concern on it.
If that's desired, we can certainly make that change to the
Let me hear
C3.
from the audience real quick, and then we'll see what everybody's going to say. Is there anybody from the audience that has any questions or concerns that is not named Leon Shahan? All right, excellent. Council, where are you guys at?
I don't see that as an issue.
I'm in favor of the encroachment policy, but I just want to encourage staff to be very aware of Americans with Disabilities and the Americans with Disabilities Act. And any time an approval is made or goes before us, or any time that people take advantage of it, that the staff is looking very close at potential violations of Americans with Disabilities Act. And I'm mentioning this because there's been some recent construction on Jefferson Street that I think we may have a little problem with, and I'll bring up the details with you later on that. But and then this week, this last weekend, when they had all the events going on in the downtown, it was wonderful. There was a huge number of people down there, but there was a couple of people in wheelchairs that were having a lot of difficulty getting through because the sidewalks were blocked. People that were moving were fine. It was some of the stationary stuff. They were taking up just a little bit too much room for people that are handicapped. That's not acceptable.
Any other comments? Okay, let's take it to vote.
Wilson?
Aye.
Davidson?
Aye.
Fleming?
Aye.
McCampbell?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye. Okay.
Your Honor, I move that we approve the authorizing an internal loan from the general fund to the tax increment revenue fund.
Second.
All right. Yeah, hang on, let me have, well, go ahead, Leon, go ahead.
Yeah, just to clarify, I'm just trying to find out what we're looking at there, so.
You lose a sheet. This resolution, oh, you took it, I was like. We usually have two up here. This resolution is approving expenses associated with TIF projects that we do annually. So this is for the fiscal year 17, which we're in, and we're just authorizing that we would do an advance to the, we pay the fees out of the general fund for attorney fees that are associated with TIF projects. And we've just set this amount, $20,000 for this next fiscal year. For example, last year, we paid at least $25,000 to the fees. So this loan authorization is not gonna cover all the expenses associated with TIF, but it's gonna reimburse the general fund for some of them, and also administrative expenses, that time that goes in with Eric and Jim.
We're allowed to cover administrative fees, which would include staff time, the attorney fees. There has to be some avenue, though, to essentially get that debt onto the books, and this is the avenue to do it. And we're not trying to cover all our costs, but we do want to get TIF to at least reflect a good portion of the costs that are associated with doing it. If you're going to do TIF, you need to make it cover its way. So that's the purpose. Does that make sense?
Satisfied? Yeah. Okay, thank you, sir. Any other questions on TIF, on number 2? Council, you guys good?
Good.
Yeah. Okay.
Wilson?
Aye.
Davidson?
Aye.
Fleming?
Aye.
McCampbell?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Okay, well done. That concludes this meeting tonight. If there's anybody that has any questions, comments, or concerns that we have not addressed, we would welcome Mr. Dean at this time. Say your name and address, please.
Dean Fennessy, I live at 211 Northern Drive, Burlington. My middle name is Klver. About that one guy about building those complexes, I applaud that because we do need more of those in this city. I've been here before about that, more government housing for people like that. Basically, I'm going to try to make this short because we all want to get home, and I'll just go home and do some reading, nothing good on television anyway. Basically, what's been happening in the United States with the police, it's that basically you always have a few bad apples in doctors and politicians and police. It's set for you people. Basically.
Nice save, Dean. Nice save.
Yeah,
nice.
I see. I just like to say that without the police, we would have chaos. We would have barbaric. And you police here and you firemen, you do an excellent job, and I applaud you for what you do. And I think that when we go home tonight, now this won't be played correct, and I don't care, that means we should kneel down and pray and thank the man up above that we have police that care about the city and firemen, who care about helping people. And like I said, you have a few bad apples. What happened in, I can't remember where it was, in
Baton Rouge.
In Baton Rouge was irresponsible. But the police here and all around, they need our support. Their job is dangerous and hazardous. I wouldn't want their job. But I like to say I applaud the police, and that's it. You all have a good night. Peace.
Well said.
The Lord Jesus Christ, and peace be with you.
With you as well, and bless you. Bless you. Well said. Well said. Anybody else, questions or comments? All All right, Leon's not even raising his hand, man. I'll take that as a sign. Mr. Tislin?
Happy 4th birthday to Hudson. That's all I got.
All right. Awesome. Happy birthday, Hudson. Counselor?
First, I'd like to, extend my support for our local police and police everywhere. You do a great job here, that's for sure. I recently saw a video of a couple officers learning how to dance.
They need a little help there, but I'm not the guy to help.
Yeah. Over the weekend, there was the farmer's market. There's tons of events downtown. Farmer's market, scavenger hunt, and a very vintage market, which I think was a big hit, and maybe they'll do it twice a year? I don't know, we'll see. This Thursday, we have, of course, the farmer's market. Come out to that. And then Friday, for those families, we have the movie Inside Out. That'll be fun at a 5 and V downtown cinema. So check that out if you have some kids. Or not. You could just go anyway. That's all I have.
Councilman?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the local law enforcement too. It's what happened in Baton Rouge is absolutely terrible, and Dean, you said it perfectly. I mean, without law enforcement, we would have chaos in this country, and thank God for police officers. My greatest fear is that officers are going to start leaving because of this challenge. This is a great challenge that we've never faced in this country before, and they shouldn't have to face that. And the fear of responding to a call and being shot dead. I've got a nephew that's on the West Burlington Police Department. I've got a cousin that's on the Burlington Police Department. I've got a cousin that's on the Sheriff's Des Moines County Sheriff's Department. I've got my best friend's son is a police officer in Jefferson City, Missouri, and a dear friend of mine, his son is a police officer in near St. Louis. And in a couple of conversations that I've had, these guys are scared. And these guys don't scare easily, but they're scared of what's happened. And I want to encourage everybody, and this is not my idea, it's nothing new, but I'm piggybacking on somebody else. I want everybody, if they would, to show their support for the police department and get yourself a blue light bulb and put it on your front porch and turn that light on, especially August 5th through the 8th. It's light the night blue, and I think it would certainly lift the spirits of a lot of our local law enforcement officers if they were to see that. I kind of cornered the market on blue light bulbs, so if somebody needs one and they can't find one anywhere, see me and I will help you. I will help you. If you can't put in a light bulb,
you wait until it thinned out before you make that announcement.
I will do my best to see to it that you get one, and all those people that have contacted me so far, I will get around to them in the next day or two so that they have a light bulb. But if you see an officer drive by, wave at them. Let them know you're there, that you got nothing to fear, nothing to hide, and that you want to recognize them for what they do, and just show how much you appreciate those guys, and the fire department as well. I mean, they've got to go into a lot of these scenes as well. We need to start respecting each other. And as a society, but we need to recognize what life would be if we didn't have these guys out doing their jobs every day. I would get off my soapbox and start handing out light bulbs.
Okay, well done. I'm going to pass tonight. Well, actually, I do want to say this. Chief Beard, I love you. I respect you, and I support our police department and our fire department. And my prayers go out to the city of Burlington, because I'll tell you, we definitely we could use some encouragement as well. But that's all I got to say. I just feel like we're blessed because we really do have a great department, yes. And we should really be grateful for that. We should really appreciate that. Mayor Pro Tem?
I can't really add anything to that, so ditto.
Ditto.
God bless you guys. My wife and I, just so you guys know, my wife and I pray for you guys every day, so.
Thank you. Bless you, Sandy. God bless you too. City Manager?
Paint-a-thon is coming up the week of September 7,
Yep, the week of Labor Day.
week of Labor Day, and city crews will be involved in one house. We sponsor a house every year, thank you. And our tentative date for our painting is on September 8th, that Thursday. North Gorge ribbon cutting, what do you have on that, Eric?
Friday, August 5th. Double check that date. Yeah, Friday, August 5th at noon at the North Gorge Trail, which is just on the, across from the golf course. They're having a ribbon cutting, grand opening kind of ceremony then at noon, so we'd encourage anyone that's available to come out to that. They've done a lot of good work out there and making progress, and they also received a $25,000 well-marked grant to complete another 2 miles this fall, so excited about that as well. And that's a great collaboration between the City of Burlington and Des Moines County Conservation, particularly the Boomeyers have done a lot of work on that.
And then I heard something about boots and badges. Does somebody want to talk about that?
Boots versus badges.
Sorry about that.
Since he dropped a dime on me, I can't help but add to what he told me a little bit ago. He said, is there any way some people could get some red lights? And I'm like, I don't think you really want that for a porch light. I'm sorry.
No. Has the meaning changed recently?
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, boots and badges. Actually, we had a softball game, I think it was 2 years ago. We did it 2 years, and then we missed a year, and it was kind of for the Pink Heels tour at the time. But Cale Heitmeyer from the West Burlington Fire Department is kind of putting this whole thing together, and it's going to be to raise funds for the K-9 program, which I'd really like to give you a very quick update on that, too. I'd have to check, but I'm pretty sure we're in that $42,000 to $45,000 range. It's just incredible what's going on in the community. And you know, I thank the community at the work session. I just want to say that again, and then I'll get to the boots and badges things about all the outcry that's coming to the police department. It's just fantastic. I mean,
awesome.
I mean, between all the things to eat, which we enjoy that, and all the cards and the flowers. And it's just really, really great to know that we work for this community. And the reason I'm following up with that, I mean, Councilman Scott was involved when we did the fundraiser for the reserves, and that was $50,000. And we did a fundraiser to get defibrillators and all the squad cars and all 3 floors of the police department. And that was about a $35,000 project, and we're pushing $50,000 worth of dogs. So, I mean, those are all private donations that come pretty much solely from this community, and that's in a period of less than 4 years. So, I mean, what more can you say? I mean, it's a difficult job right now, but when you have people like that get up behind you, it makes it a lot easier to come in here and try to do what we do. So, yeah, the boots and badges is going to be a softball game. I think it's Saturday, August 5th or 6th. I think that's the 6th at the Bees Field. It'll be a lot of fun. There'll be 3 different softball games since there's so many firefighters, but you'll see the same policeman over and over. I mean, we beat them all 3 games last time. So.
That's what I'm talking about.
I don't know what they're bringing this year, but yeah. So yeah, that's the deal, and it's a community event. They're going to try to run it like a Bees game, where they're going to have all the concessions available, and they're going to have the areas open for the kids to go play. So it's normally fairly well attended. So.
Excellent.
Enjoy that. My niece is getting married that day, so I will come a little slack. But in all fairness, I'm really, really going to miss that. I played the first 2 years and really enjoyed it. But yeah, Major Kramer's putting together the team, so. And you know how it is. He's going to bring his daughter into pitch, I think. Yeah.
Cheaters. You know, hey, I want to say,
fireman.
Yeah. The Miss Burlington's going to be there signing, I think, signing 8x10 glosses or something like that. I'm going to be there. They're letting me do the opening prayer on that day, so I'll be there as well. Come on out. Make sure if you do come to that event, stop by and say hello to the mayor. I would certainly love to see and shake your hand. And before I get too offensive, because it's probably going to be a sweaty day, I'm giving out hugs as well. So make sure you step on out and see us. And just want to throw this out again. Show your support, citizens. Show your support. Get a blue light. Tim's not going to buy them for the whole city of Burlington. But I'll tell you what, it wouldn't hurt any of our feelings to just see Burlington lit up with blue lights. So show your support. Let the police department know that we support them, So I would encourage that. If there's nothing else, Mr. Fleming?
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Kathleen, let's take it to vote.
Wilson?
Aye.
Davidson?
Aye.
Fleming?
Aye.
Campbell?
Yes, please.
Scott?
Aye.
This meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much.
Good job.
It's a classy move, my friend.
How are you doing, Mike?